4:33 on September 30th. Roll call. Loth.
Here.
Medved is absent excused. Ewert
Here.
taking the place of Medved. Medcuts is absent excused for right now, and Paulak is present. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. I hear a motion.
Move to approve the agenda. Second.
Motion by Loth, second by Ewert. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, approval of the September 16th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of September 16th, 2024.
Second.
Motion by Loth, Ewert with the second for the approval of the September 16th meeting minutes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, reports and update. Long-range facility planning, Mr. Lord.
Thank you. As discussed at and following the September 16th Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, administration has asked C.D. Smith and Plunkett Razich Architects, PRA, to present their approach and proposal as it relates to facilities condition assessment and long-range planning services to the Buildings and Grounds Committee. And with that, I will turn it over.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here to share some of our process with you. Some of you got to see some of this previously, but it's nice to be able to share with a larger group. So we're excited to jump right in. Some quick introductions before we all start speaking. And please, as we go along, if you have questions, comments, please just jump in. This doesn't need to be us just speaking the whole time, of course. My name is Nick Kent. I am an architect at PRA, and I am one of our education studio leaders. So my role in this project will be the primary point of contact for our team. I get to handle all of the administrative tasks for this, working on contracts, billings, all the things that are important but make our team work for you. I am also an educational space planner. So my world as it relates to architecture is really focusing on big picture items, looking at the long-term view of our work. And that every time we think about making any kind of investment in our facilities, we want to make sure that we are doing it through a lens of what is the greatest value, the longest term value that we can get for the community, for the students, for the staff that will be using these buildings. So that's my piece. I'm a little bit of the conductor of the band, but certainly I need band members to make music. Holly?
I feel like I should have drums. Good afternoon. My name is Holly
Cool.
Brenner. I'm excited to be here as well. I will serve in a communications and engagement capacity for the work that we do together. I have spent the majority of my professional career and also really my life through volunteerism in roles that help to enhance communities, helping communities really become the best versions of themselves. I'm driven to help build communities where people feel safe, where they feel connected, and schools are a tremendous part of that. They're the part of the tapestry of every community that I know anyway, and I always feel really fortunate to be able to work with districts in that way.
Well, I'm Mitch Kidd. I'm a senior project manager with C.D. Smith. I've been with the company for 12 years, solely focusing in the K-12 market. On this project, I would be the lead for helping establish the scope for the facility study, and then also pricing all the options with in-house with myself, Kelvin Sobel, who's not here. He's our in-house MEP expert, and then I'll be working with the architects and the engineers as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Melissa Thompson and it's a pleasure to see you today. I am the Director of Education Strategy with PRA, and that's a role I've had the pleasure of serving in now for about 15 months. Prior to that, and I think what's especially relevant to our work together, hopefully moving forward, is I spent 25 years in public education as a district superintendent for 12, as a high school principal and athletic director, as well as high school teacher, and working with kids early childhood all the way through grade 12. So my role is to partner with the process, the district, and to help in everything from vocabulary development and translation, because sometimes there are words that are different between education and the industries that we represent here today, but also to help make sure that we, as the architecture firm, are really supporting the district and thinking about the things that are important to future space allocation and planning. So everything around curriculum, programming. There are many things out there these days that sometimes come into our districts as, you know, maybe that is changes to reading instruction or changes to this. It's helping to work with the district and our firm to make sure that we aren't missing something in what future space programming and planning should include, to make sure that we are preparing the best we can for what's to hold and support your students and your staff and community. It's a pleasure to be with you.
There's one more smiley face up there that could not make it to be with us tonight. That's Devin Kack. He is an architect and a partner of mine in this practice. So while I get to work on contracts, Devin gets to work on actually designing things. And design means many, many different things, right? It could be anything from updating the finishes in a space like this to figuring out how to collaborate with an engineer to replace a piece of a mechanical system, making sure that whatever happens in a building is thoroughly thought through and integrated into the function and the form of that space. So he's a very, very important part of that team, and unfortunately just couldn't make tonight work.
So why PRA and CD Smith? Why come to you as a team? Well, the 6 items on this slide, we aim to go over those today in our presentation, but these, we believe, are what will help you understand why we've chosen to partner, why we think this could be a great solution for your district. I'll start out with team experience. We've been in this space for a very long time. I know it's hard to tell by the youthful energy you see around this end of the table, but including Devin, we have more than 100 years of relevant experience just with this group. And know that there's a team behind us or that will help support the efforts should we be in the position to move forward together. But we've been in this space a long time. We're very passionate about it as well, and we're here to help. It's our job to help anticipate the hurdles. It's our job to navigate uncertainty. It's our job to help educate stakeholders, whoever they are, as part of this process.
Innovative and future focused. So anytime we start to think about making capital investments in facilities, we almost immediately jump into long-term thinking, right? So we don't change things large or small in buildings for short-term solutions. So when we're presented with an opportunity, again, as my example before, whether it's changing finishes in a room like this or changing out a mechanical piece in a building, we want to make sure that we have a long-term objective in mind so we can get the greatest return on that investment and create the best possible learning spaces for today and for tomorrow. And part of that is also having a flexible approach. Sitting here today, we don't know where this path is going to take us or what types of things may need to be addressed within each one of these facilities. As we dig in to what lurks behind walls, what is in mechanical rooms, what are those long-term capital needs in the facilities, we will have a lot of conversations and a lot of different approaches to how those needs will be addressed over some time. So we need to be flexible, and we need to be able to change directions to find the best possible solution for the district and for the community.
Kind of moving down to building on experience and trusted advisors. We're always looking long-term. Relationships mean everything to us. It's our job to not only deliver projects on time, but also with accurate budgets. And we're really here to make this process engaging, but also fun and enjoyable for your team.
Mm-hmm. And cultural alignment is something where we are both in the people business. We focus on relationships first, and that is the foundational element of being able to understand what the needs of the district are, and then letting that take its way through the process. And so, just as you are people focused, we seek first to understand together and then work with you to vet or develop different solutions or long-range plans accordingly. And you know, it's really about building trusting relationships and community engagement. And community means a lot of different things. It's this right here is a community, school-based communities, the greater Germantown School District community. So a lot of opportunities for us to work with you as a district, and through that cultural alignment that our companies have with yours, your school district, and then develop the best path forward for your district. There is no one-size-fits-all approach.
And finally, proven track record. We work hard to do the right things for the right reasons, and we feel very grateful to have a number of current clients, former clients that we work with on project after project over years, over decades, even, I would say, even generations. And we're grateful that they'll vouch for us. So we'd be happy to provide some additional references if that's something that you're interested in. But we believe that that speaks to the proven track record and our ability and our willingness, our eagerness to get the job done right every time. So you've heard a few reasons why we think our two companies make one great team potentially for your district. But beyond the awards, the recognition, and the numbers, we are people. Melissa was talking about it with our respect to relationships and our eagerness to develop solid relationships. We care about each other. We care about our clients, and we care about the work that we do together. We are selective in the work that we do. We are absolutely not trying to be the biggest. We are trying to be the best. And that is represented here tonight. We're here because we believe this is a good fit for the district and for our teams, and we're willing to commit the right resources for it. If we didn't have the right people for this work, we would not be here talking with you tonight. And that's something we're very committed to, is making sure we've got the right people and the right fit. The people that you see here today, including Devin, who you saw on the screen as part of the band, are the people that you will see throughout the project from day one or pre-day one through the end and then beyond.
So most of you in the room are probably familiar with our history with the school district. This is just a kind of a snapshot of the little more than a decade's worth of work that we have done together. We're all familiar with the work, of course, that resulted from the 2016 referendum, but what may not be as well known is work that preceded that was not referendum funded. So we actually started a process like this looking at each one of these buildings way back in 2011, and that actually identified some needs that resulted in projects that preceded going to the community, including security improvements at all of the buildings and the expansion at Rockfield Elementary, which was a project that almost is kind of forgotten in time because the referendum projects came so quickly upon that. But that was actually a very nice project that greatly expanded the capabilities of that building. So our history actually goes back quite a ways. And then I did mention the first time we were chatting with you guys, I actually went to school here through third grade. So my very earliest roots are right here at County Line Elementary School. So it does have a little bit of a personal meaning to me too. So these are just some of the photos, right, of things that have been accomplished by the community and by the district over the last several years. And there's a tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount of effort that many stakeholders put forward to come to these incredible results. But all of it is about dedication, right, and getting the work done, listening, and actually executing our projects. And we can't do that as architects without great partnership with great builders in CD Smith.
Yeah, so like Nick was saying, our teams together, we brought these projects to life, not only on time, but on budget. And we're just gonna throw up here kind of the original budget for the project was $75.15 million. And once we got through all of the design sets, on bid day, it was about 72.7 with $1.8 million of ad alternates that a lot of them were eventually put back into the project. So really we were within 1% from the first day of the design all the way through bidding the projects. And I did want to mention too, so I really touched most of the district. I was involved with all the elementary schools and the middle school as the project manager. I was part of the high school, but I did not oversee that one, so I'm very familiar with the buildings here. So we did want to jump into kind of phasing, planning, and scheduling just to show safety. So really, it starts right away from the beginning of not only how do we build these buildings, but how do we do it with the least amount of disruption to students and staff. We know you can't just say, we're gonna put school on pause for a year. So how do we build these buildings around not only from a safety perspective, but the most cost-effective and efficient way? So here's just kind of a early phasing drawing that we put together for the high school. Not only does it help us figure out how to build the building, but also we can use these as documents that we send to contractors so that they know how we're planning on building them, so we can avoid any change orders or schedule delays. So another thing that we put together also for the high school too was just a video. We call it a site logistic plan that not only can we use early on in the design process, but also a lot of times we can use this to get to parents and staff. Obviously, if we're disrupting the site, a lot of times pickup and drop-off loops are reoriented, and really to show a three-dimensional rendering of where we're building. A lot of times when you look at a two-dimensional drawing, it's hard for people to really visualize what we're doing. So a lot of times we can put this together to show when we're touching different portions of the building. And for the high school, we just use simple different colors for demolition, new addition, remodel, and then kind of also the different durations and timing that we are planning on hitting each one of those sections. So as you can see here at the high school, it was a lot of leapfrog, where it would be get a portion done, then we would take another portion, get that remodeled and completed, and then take another portion. So we did that throughout the course of the 2 years. And then we can also display on these renderings where we're planning on having pickup and drop off, so that we can avoid that during deliveries. We know obviously that's very hectic for the 2 times of the day. So we can get that to our contractors to avoid any truck traffic going in, so we're not disrupting or causing any safety concerns. And then it really shows the district where we plan on housing all the construction materials, and just kind of being open, transparent with the team, so everybody knows where we're building and when we're building each section of the building.
So we've talked about what we've done in the past. What is it that we would be doing into the future? Let's take a quick look at that. Anytime we embark upon one of these processes with a community, with a school district, we have to go into it looking for efficient and effective solutions for the challenges that we uncover through this process. And our process is really focusing on 2 primary components here this evening. The first is what we call seek. The second is what we conveniently start with an S, study. That first piece, seek, is really digging into the facilities condition assessment. It's going through every square foot of space in the district, all the systems, the components that make up these facilities inside and out, and getting a great understanding of what are the long-term capital needs from a maintenance standpoint. We'll get into that a little bit deeper here in a minute. The second piece that we'll touch on is studying the functionality of each one of the spaces in the district. We need to have a great understanding of what's working functionally or what's not working. Do we have enough of the right spaces? Do we have maybe too much of something that could be converted into some other use very simply, very efficiently within the district? So those are kind of our 2 primary areas of study at the initial piece of this process.
So really, when we think of a facility assessment, the first component is breaking down each building, and that is looking at each component and the life expectancies. There's a lot of roofs in the district. You guys have done a great job upkeeping them, but roofs have life expectancy. So really, we're gonna break down each building into components to look at how long you've got out of your mechanical systems, your doors, your windows, and all the materials, and work backwards from there. You might have a roof that has no leaks, but it's exceeded its life expectancy. We do wanna note that just so we can track that. And the importance of having the 2 firms is we're stronger together. We really do a great job of challenging each other. We're gonna walk around with the architects and look at the windows of the building, and they might say they shouldn't be replaced, and we might have a different opinion. So it's really working together as a team to get to the best product for the district. And really, we're gonna be walking each building with Frank and his staff, the people that are extremely familiar with each building. So as a group, we're gonna walk every room inch by inch and really develop this master plan list for your facility study. So if we go to the next slide here, really, there's a lot of numbers, a lot of colors. We did pass out a couple booklets so that you can see a current project that we are working with PRA on, that we just completed a facility study. So really, we're gonna break each building down into different components, so like the exterior and interior of the building. So we're gonna look at the building shell, the roof, ADA accessibility, life safety, interior finishes, the building system, so that would be the mechanical, the plumbing, the electrical, and fire protection if there is any, and then we'll also look at the site. So we're gonna do a detailed list of each building and each component, and then we will also have a master top sheet that'll roll each building for the whole district up, so you can see the overall total of we're tracking. And how we're gonna do this is we're gonna work with Frank and his team to develop levels. So what do you have to look at now? So we could say an immediate priority, and we can develop how many years we want to categorize that as. But a lot of times we look at now to 2 years, short-term priorities 2 to 5 years, and then long-term 5 to 10 years. So we don't want to just set the district up for what you have to look at now, but also set the district up for success, what you need to track in the future. And what can happen on this is all of a sudden a level 3 can become a level 1 with an issue, but we want to be able to have all of this summed up so that you guys can track it as a district and really utilize it to see how much money you might need to allocate to each building.
And that brings us to the second part of our process that we were just discussing, and that is study. So this is where we look at space and programming needs assessment. And you'll see different terminology used in maybe component parts of this, but kind of rolled up together, it's really the educational space analysis. So what does that mean and what does that entail? The biggest pieces are really utilizing your district's current class size policy or any future potential changes to that you would envision, and looking at the square foot of the different spaces, classroom by classroom throughout each of the buildings, as well as the common spaces. So it's everything, just like Mitch was talking about, you're going through every component part for facilities condition assessment from a maintenance look. We're doing the same thing kind of simultaneously with educational space analysis. So at the end of the day, if you look in the top right corner there, you see some color coding. You see, for instance, maybe those blue spaces could represent adequate space, or perhaps it's the opposite, right? So the not colored in spaces might be undersized. So you'll get charts and graphs and information for each of your different buildings. Similarly, the chart below it that shows, I know it may be a little bit hard to read from where you're sitting, but you do have it also in your packet, shows what is the max capacity, what is the district's target capacity, and then what is the actual enrollment, per the numbers that the district gives us. And so what this is nice is this starts to show you some trends. It also, provides, right? Are we where we need to be? Are there some things that maybe we need to look at? And so with that, we want to be especially taking care of number 3 on this slide as well, which is, what about visionary programs? I know that you have a fantastic CTE program at the high school. You have worked so hard to build out that space, to think about what's needed, right? We have industry partnerships, things of that nature. That is a very important component part of all of this. It's looking ahead and saying, what are those things that we can reasonably forecast, or we know through other things that we are working on with our business partners? Even if those are more high school focused, then we backwards map it down, right? And we start saying, okay, so if we want to be here at the high school level, what does that mean at the middle school level? What does that mean down at the elementary level? And that's where, when we talk about the visionary component, it's really about your vision. It is the district's vision for curriculum, programming. Services offered is another one. Some districts have a lot with wraparound care, or they're looking to provide, because we know how difficult it can be for parents to find wraparound care or before care for their children. So every district is unique in that, but we're here to ask questions and hear your answers. And when needed, we will certainly help you to find out maybe some more information to help you with that.
So we thought we'd share just a brief case study, and this is Reedsville School District. So if you're not familiar with the bustling community of Reedsville, it is definitely smaller than Germantown. It's just west of Manitowoc. And while smaller, I think it's really a good example. This is something that PRA and CD Smith completed maybe a year or so ago. Their story is really one that started very much like this. They had only two buildings in their district, and they wanted to get a good handle on their maintenance needs. At the same time, they had an idea. We have some spaces in our older, well, actually in both buildings, that we kind of feel are being underutilized, and we have some pinch points for programming within our existing facilities. What is it that we can do to better utilize those facilities? So as we got into this exact same process, we started studying them, and we developed a list of maintenance projects here. So everything from things that Mitch talked about, replacing windows, some roofing work, We had to address security. We enhanced the security at one of their buildings. But what was really interesting is they had a growing 4K program. They didn't have space. The buildings weren't built, right, with 4K in mind. But they had identified spaces within their elementary that were hardly being utilized. The spaces that are the photographs on the bottom are actually what we created using their Fund 46 dollars and their operational budget to actually take existing spaces and repurpose them. So they actually turned an existing, what was an effectively unused library space into a collaboration area that served a multitude of students. And when we did that, we were able to pull some other programming out of undersized classrooms and transform those by combining them with neighboring rooms into properly sized 4K rooms. We never built an additional square foot of space at all on this building. It was just very carefully and thoughtfully reorganizing existing square footage that they already have and redeploy it and repurpose it to meet their growing and changing needs. So again, while tiny and not Germantown, it's a great example of what you can do by just thinking very critically of what you already have within the district.
Communication support. So PRA and CD Smith, we have a full communications team, and we're able to support your facilities, master planning, communication needs as an extension of the district and your team. It's often really very helpful to use technology and to use, we've listed a variety of different communications mediums and techniques up there, but to use those to document the current state of the facilities and also to help tell the story of the need and the vision and where the district might want to go. So these are services that, as part of your the CD Smith and PRA team, we have to offer. Again, we're here to support you as a district and a board in communication in whatever way that is meaningful and helpful to the process.
And we did want to just hit on some of the technologies that we can utilize for this process, and some of them are, we can do drone footage, which from a site perspective, it can do kind of grade changes and really allow us to figure out if we need to redirect water, look from an aerial at pickup drop off, if there's any bottlenecks and what we could do to increase the traffic flow. We can do 360-degree photos of a room, so you can go in a room, take a photo. We can link it to a PDF. So if we're sitting, I'm talking to Frank, and we're like, what did the ceiling tile look in that room? We can just click on the button and we get a 360 photo of the room. Or sometimes we can take it to the next level where we do scanning of the building, where you bring an instrument into a room, you can scan the whole thing, and then we can utilize that and basically walk through each building. So you don't always have to remember everything. You can just go to the model or this program to look back at what was in each classroom.
All right, back to me, the contract guy. So you guys did not explicitly ask for a team of architects and construction managers. We put that together on our own. So we wanted to bring this forward to you, that should you choose to proceed with us as a team, there are different ways that you should structure that. We could have separate contracts, right? It could be a PRA contract direct to the district, CD Smith contract direct to the district in a fairly traditional setup. We hope you don't do this, but you could decide to select only part of our team and proceed with us. We do believe that we are stronger together, but that is an option for you to discuss. And then the last one, which we've been actually doing a little bit more of recently, is the design-build relationship, where you have a single contract, most likely through CD Smith, and then CD Smith would hold our contract. So there's a single point of responsibility back to the school district. We work the same, it's just a different contractual structure. So it's something to potentially consider as you are thinking about how it might be best to move forward for Germantown.
Finally, kind of back to where we started. Why PRA? Why CD Smith? 2 firms, 1 team. We're in it for the long haul. As I said before, we stand behind our people, we stand behind our work, and we stand behind the people that we work with. Our being here today, the 4 of us plus Devin, this is a commitment. We're committing to you for the long haul. You won't find a harder working, more passionate group. We're excited about this project. We're excited for many reasons, right? Third
Right.
grade memories, for many reasons to help and to be part of what you're considering here for the district. If we are selected, we will give you everything we've got. We're a fun group, we're a hardworking group, and we're eager to serve. So do you have any questions for us at this point?
up. Anybody want to start?
Yes, I'll start with, during the planning process, I think it's easy to look at enrollment trends for us. But we're seeing a lot of development and potential development within the village. How does that factor into your study?
So, there are a couple different paths that districts have utilized. One is utilizing your own historic enrollment and making some educated, I'll say, guesses at where that's going to go. Sometimes influenced by input from municipalities, sometimes not. A better way to go is to engage with a demographer. Mark Roffers, you may know the name, is probably the best in our region. That's a very specialized skill that actually gets into very minute detail to look for development patterns, demographic patterns, birth rates, death rates, things like that, that are actually driving actual population. That's a separate piece from our work, but that data does directly influence what we're looking at. Take Amy Bell. You know, there may be, or Rockville, there may be large areas of land that could be developed or are zoned to be developed in the next 5 years, 10 years. That's the kind of information that will dial into and give us a reasonably accurate, right? Everything is a little bit of a guess, but a reasonably accurate data point to start to plan capacity for the future.
That's one of the biggest questions we have right now. There's a lot of multifamily unit proposals floating around the village.
Those are the
And no one
hardest.
seems to answer how many kids does that come with?
Or how long do they stay?
Well, both those, and very important, right? And or the transitory nature of it.
And what income level are you looking at in those
Yeah.
multifamily developments, right? Right. That's where a group like MD Roffers is, I'll say it again, I mean, it is still an educated guess that they're working on, but they are the best in finding those data points.
Mr. Brown, did you?
Quick question regarding facilities assessment. I think I heard Mitch mention the drone technology and identifying bottlenecks for drop-off and pickup. I didn't see that in any other part of the plan. Is that something you do, is do like a traffic analysis and flow of traffic through the schools or around the schools?
I mean, we can customize it to what you guys are looking for. If there's certain buildings that you guys have that bottleneck with, the drone footage does help. I mean, we can also use Google Earth, but a lot of times it really helps. If we're gonna bring a drone down here, it makes no difference if we're gonna fly it over one or all of the schools. But really, it would be working with your team to develop which schools have those bottleneck issues, and we'd have to get some of the historical information with traffic flow and what roads are being utilized in the different pickup drop-off times.
Okay, great.
As far as the study, we've talked a lot about buildings and facilities. What about our external facilities?
Absolutely, yeah, and we probably should have highlighted that more. So it's everything from property line to property line. So we're looking at site circulation, you know, condition of pavement. We're looking at, say, at the high school, at the athletic facilities, the stadiums, the ancillary support, the outbuildings there. So yes, it's everything.
So, Nick?
Yeah.
Our 2016 referendum
Yeah.
that was approved, I think we were complete by 2019, if I remember correctly.
Sounds right.
Are all our drawings for all our referendum editions accurate? And does Frank have a copy of everything?
You should have, and if you don't, we'll certainly give them to you, the final drawings from all of the sites. Are they accurate to every single tile that went in?
Mhm.
Probably not, but they are accurate to everything that was designed, issued, and contracted. Everything is incorporated in them, yes.
Frank, you can answer truthfully. Do you think you have the drawings, or you
I
think you're
believe I
lacking?
have them, but in what order and where they're stored as of right now is the
Yeah.
question. Everything at this point that I've looked a little bit harder for, I've found, but at some point, once I get to housekeeping tasks, I'm gonna compile everything and organize it very well.
If you are missing anything, just let us know. So everything is a PDF set that we just zip right over to you.
So some of our drawings that you worked off of weren't the most accurate and, you know, from jobs or work that was done many, many years before.
Yep.
The items that weren't accurate, were those corrected in those drawings, or did you just kind of let that go? And you know what I'm getting at probably, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, as much as we can, and as much as it affected the work that was completed, but we did not go back and say field measure every piece of every building to make it exactly accurate. No.
No.
So if it affected the work that we were doing, right, because we didn't touch every square foot
Right.
in every building.
But what I'm talking about is I forget exactly the size, but I think they were hydronic heating pipes, 4 of them.
Yeah.
What were they, 12 inches in diameter, running the full length of a hallway?
Something like that.
That weren't on the drawings?
Yeah, yeah.
So it seemed like nobody knew about them until C.D. Smith looked above the first ceiling tile, which
Yeah.
altered
Yeah.
other parts of the project kind of drastically, and I
Yeah.
think caused some overages. Not
Mhm.
necessarily C.D. Smith's issue, but,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah, anything that was designed under that 2016 project should be accurate in those drawings as it was designed and contracted. I'm sure there are things that were built a couple inches over this way or a couple inches over that way that's not reflected in those models.
yeah, that's okay. I
Yeah.
mean, I get that. But I don't know if everybody in the room understands that accurate drawings for the referendum really weren't that important. Accurate drawings for modifications
Right,
to the work is where it's important. So
right.
obviously you started off with a set of bad drawings from us, but
Well-
where I'm going with this is, I think someone from PRA needed to look above those ceiling tiles to find those pipes. I mean, it was
Yeah.
the 800-pound gorilla in the room, or
Yeah.
elephant.
I hate elephants like
Yeah,
that.
so
that
do I.
enter, that enter the room. Yeah, you know, and I agree. I wish somebody had lifted those ceiling tiles and found a 12-inch pipe in the ceiling too. And we try to do our best to find those things. Oftentimes we don't get to lift every ceiling tile, right? You know, in an ideal world, take all ceiling tiles out, do a 3D scan of the entire building, map everything, know exactly where it is, exactly what's up there, and then proceed. But that's not real. So, yeah, I hate it, you know, when we miss something like that. And I can't promise that it will never happen again, but we have to do our best to lift as many tiles and poke around in as many corners as we can. But I can't, and I don't think if anybody did promise you today that would never ever happen again, that's not real.
So, other board members don't necessarily know, we had PRA on board, you know, early, like their timeline showed, but we picked C.D. Smith separately. You two were not.
Correct.
Did you join because of our referendum, or?
No, actually, well, sort of actually. So kind of the first large efforts in quite some time in the school world that we did together as a team was actually Germantown.
Mhm.
And since then, this relationship has really grown quite a bit. So we are now working in four different school districts right now, actively today. So this is really, circumstance, you know, was one we were kind of put together through the selection process, but it worked really well and continues to work really well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so no, it's not just because we worked in Germantown.
From an approximate standpoint, from start through the anticipated finish of reviewing all of our facilities and compiling the list and working with Frank and everything, approximately how much time do you think this study would take? Obviously, there could be a lot of things that happen, but you know, when you think about 6 buildings, the size of them, et
Yeah.
cetera. And the outdoor facilities.
I think in 2011, when I was in this room and asked that question,
Hmm.
we probably said something like 3 or 4 months and we're done. And I think it took about 4 years before we finally came to the conclusion of that. So the heavy lift of this is really walking the buildings, sitting down with building level leadership, understanding how the spaces are being used. That's really, we have the holidays coming up, so that kind of stretches us out. In all honesty, that's probably about three to 4 months of heavy work to kind of get us to a report out to the group. Can we move faster? Yeah. I mean, if the community, if the board, the administration says, hey, we need to be at the board in February with a report or whatever date you pick, we'll make it happen. But the faster you move, the greater the chances of not lifting a ceiling tile are and missing some things. Where we go from there, what the conversation, how it evolves, so once we identify those things, we'll see. That's where the last effort went from 4 months to 4 years. And that's okay. We'll just see where these conversations go and what next steps might look like.
Nick, could you speak to the contract model options again, just for some clarity of what it looks like?
Yeah. So again, the first one was separate contracts. That's the way we were set up for the 2016 referendum, right? So, like you alluded to, we were hired first, and then we worked for quite a while, and then there was an RFP for CM, and CD Smith came on board. 2 separate contracts, two different points of responsibility. Again, the single one was, you could pick just one of us, which again is kind of how 2016 started. We don't like that. We think there's greater value. Design build is, as I mentioned, one that we've done a little bit more of recently. So contractually, the school district would enter into probably an AIA contract with CD Smith. In fact, this is how we're working currently with Franklin Public Schools together. So there's one contract from Germantown School District with CD Smith as a design builder, not as just a construction manager. CD Smith would then turn around and contract PRA as their designer. So contractually, the school district would only have one relationship between Germantown and CD Smith. We work the same, we're still a team, everything still functions the same, it's just a different contractual flow of responsibility. Some districts like that, there's just a single point of responsibility, a single contract to negotiate from your end. Others like to have 2 separate entities. It's kind of the tried and true 3-legged stool model between owner, architect, and builder.
Is there a fluctuation in price point for each of those, or are they on par?
No, they should be on par. Well, that depends on what CD Smith wants to.
They're on par.
I don't know about that.
Hot seat.
Right.
Yeah, good answer.
Other questions?
So just a little bit different aspect of designing is, so obviously you have the structural, the safety and all that, but then the other part of that design would be longevity. How do you guys, what's your approach in not getting pigeonholed into this looks good now
Oh, yeah.
versus 10 years from now and everybody's like, oof, that's so,
Yeah.
80s or whatever. So how do you, what's your approach in negating that and how successful have you been in the past as far as other projects that you have? You can look back 5-10 years and you're still like, I really like this walking into that building.
Yeah. It's a hard question, right? Because it's so subjective. Like, what is...
It's extremely subjective.
Right. It's really important, right? And primarily that, from a finishes standpoint, it comes down to thinking about materiality, especially materials that will last a long time. Like, paint is one thing, right? So paint colors change. It's fairly easy to change. If we don't like the color of a painted wall, it's pretty easy to change paint. If we do tile, like out in the corridor, that's probably not going to change, right? For 2 decades, 3 decades, it's going to last. So when we think about those types of things, we do want to think about not being trendy. We do want to stay off trend, sounds like a bad term, but not trendy, right? Something that is kind of timeless, something that is fairly neutral. It's still good, right? We still want to create spaces that uplift and are welcoming, create welcoming environments, but not something that is like clearly from 1992, right? In terms of like space, if we were reconfiguring a space, That's a little bit trickier too, right? We want to think back to flexibility. In my Reedsville example, when we thought about how we reconfigured their existing space, we really wanted to think about not only their programming needs today, but also how could they readily adapt that space for things that they don't even know are coming yet, right? So we thought about like, how do you locate doors? How do you locate windows that could become doors in the future to kind of either link spaces together or separate them off with very quick changes. So we're also trying to keep the functionality not trendy, but flexible and timeless.
If Devin were here, he'd say, and boy, did we have this conversation in my school district, which the original building that had been added onto and added onto and added onto was from 1894. Melissa, it can't ugly out. Meaning, you know, of course, we all want to change paint and do these things, but that's not a good reason.
Right.
I mean, you may get into something which allows you to change the ugly out or the trend from 25, 30 years ago, but that's not really the driving force. We're not here to, you know, do that kind of work. We'll happily support it and help it, but that is probably not the driver. You're not gonna see a report from us about like a highlighted page of, by the way, 1979 called and think about this.
This is
This is
back.
purely based on, you know, constructive step one, step two.
Well, like what you're saying, as far as longevity of how you can, eventually this can be used for this, cause
Mhm.
otherwise if it's pigeonholed
Right.
and then you're stuck,
Mhm.
that doesn't help for future use of the, you know,
Right.
of the project.
Well, and it's the building and grounds too, though, because
Right.
just as you brought up with maybe parts of your properties and land that you know in the community is gonna get developed, maybe not even for 20 years, but that's what the forecast is. To Nick's point, how are we thinking about those compartmentalization and the doors and the directionality of even egress and things like that when there may be a earmarked potential future addition to a building that wouldn't happen for a really long time? So to the extent that that's possible to do,
Mhm.
it's something that we work really hard with you on to try to figure out.
Mhm.
For managing the last referendum, what are some glaring things that you kind of go, well, that wasn't touched, and it's been X amount of years since then?
Sure.
I would think there's a few red flags, probably just,
Well, the middle school, right, is our single biggest point of facility need. And of all the buildings in the district, that one, as a whole, received the least amount of change, of love, right? So, while it generally looks pretty good, kinda good, when you walk through it, there's still quite a bit of need, in that facility. We only got into really the classroom areas in any great depth. We still have maintenance in that building that we didn't touch. I would say that's our largest area of need, that one building.
some of our concerns, at least mine, are
Hmm.
the area of landing in this deferred maintenance. We see some surrounding districts with some pretty big holes. Our goal is to not ever be in that hole. And I
Right.
think that might be what's pushing some of these questions being asked, or the RFP being issued,
Right,
to help us understand where we're really at.
right.
Which, that doesn't necessarily translate to a new lobby or gym or
Totally.
those types of things.
Totally. Those are foundational elements, right? You need to maintain the spaces that you have. And we see this everywhere we go, right? Whatever was built last will always be the new something, until there's a new something. So when you project out 10 years, 15 years, even some of the things that today are still new, maintenance will start to come onto the radar. So we do want to help you set up and be proactive as a community, to even start to look at those things that won't be new forever. So the sooner you can start preparing, building Fund 46, right? So you don't have to borrow, you have those funds available 15 years down the road. I think that's probably what you're getting at, right? You want to build that proactive plan.
I would maybe add on to that and say what you see outlined here really hits upon, you know, the maintenance, the the pieces that are directly related to educational space. The other conversations that typically happen though when we're working with a district are really kind of the four main buckets that you as board members oversee, and oftentimes, frankly, how your district leadership is comprised, right? So we're talking here about teaching and learning with study. Finance and operations is kind of the overarching for one, but there's a whole bunch of operational pieces that are well beyond just looking at, does the HVAC work, right? It is all things like we were just talking about with, what about the traffic flow on site that leads to safety, which is all kind of under that same umbrella. And then there's the HR side of things. So there's a lot of opportunity that when we're having meetings and conversations about some of these things, it really does go beyond into various pieces of what is current district policy around things. Would policy be impacted by various things, or maybe should policy be looked at if we're realizing things for, just various things, whether that's class size or whether that's attendance. I mean, there's just so many tentacles to all of this when you're doing that long-range planning. And into the HR side, are we a destination workplace is something we commonly hear of from people, because to your point, you don't want to have such a list of deferred maintenance items that it starts to really impact then what are the offerings for our children, because we know that sometimes you can't have a leaky roof forever, right, until you have to fix it. So where does that money come from? So we're here to partner proactively with you to make sure that the things that are the core of day-to-day business and that the community is expecting, we're having all of those other conversations along this journey so that your ducks are in a row, right? So that the district's priorities and core mission can be carried out every day.
Yes, Mr. Barney.
I appreciate that you stopped at 1 and 2. Your original documentation went through steps 3, 4, and 5, which all speak to, hey, we'll help you get to referendum. Since that was in your original presentation, that makes me think that a lot of the school districts that you work with go that route. They may do some planning, but then ultimately their goal was referendum. Do you work with any districts that just go through step 1 and 2, or would we be like the first case scenario of that?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So Reedsville, the case study that I shared with you, is actually a little bit of a hybrid in between. So they actually started with the intention of going to referendum. And in fact, they did kind of push out for a no tax increase referendum, and that was not successful. So actually, retroactively, it became this that was really the value in that entire process. So, well, they didn't set out to do that. They backed up and went this path and found great success, right? So they were actually able to do all of their work under the money that they had available, and it worked out incredibly. There are other districts. We did this in Whitefish Bay, my own school district. So we did it. Now they may ultimately go to referendum, but similar to what we did with you guys starting in 2011. We've done projects now. We just finished a series together. We just finished a series of projects there that were all based on this steps 1 and 2. We identified needs within their high school building that were both maintenance and educational driven, and we completed a project. No referendum dollars associated with it. Now that conversation's evolving, and it will potentially in a couple of years lead to a referendum, but by no means is that a foregone conclusion.
All right, thank you.
I think what Tom's getting at a little bit with that is the appetite for this community and this board, are that initial approach, not to back our way into
Yeah.
a Fund 46, but the intent to how much can we manage through that respectfully
Yeah.
of the community before ever having to go beyond that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I keep going back to Reedsville. I think that was their initial approach too, and they had actually built up a very healthy Fund 46. They did not have the intention of going to referendum. I think they did go to referendum because they had, at least they thought, they had an opportunity to tackle more. Again, through not raising their tax base, they had some debt falling off, so they asked. And it didn't work, and that's okay. So they actually kind of went back. So I think what they really set out to do in the first place.
Any other questions from anybody? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Okay.
We
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
guys.
much.
You.
Item number 6, unfinished business. There is none, and there is no new business under item 7. So I'll take one final motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Loth, second by Ewert to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting ends 5:28.